Good morning. A NYC shooter who killed 4 people has been identified by police, and I'm Remo. This is the Daily Signal for July 30th, 2025. Stay tuned for the rest of today's breaking stories.
Unfiltered. Now,
Here are the other top stories for July 30th, 2025. Breaking overnight, the UK threatens to recognize Palestine if Israel rejects an immediate Gaza ceasefire. Critical update. Global monitors confirm famine is now unfolding across Gaza, with thousands at risk of starvation. Mass deportations. Iran forcibly returns tens of thousands of Afghan refugees to an uncertain future. Major drug bust. Dominican authorities seize 1.5 tons of cocaine after a 12-hour high-speed boat chase. Tragic connection. A Palestinian teacher denied U.S. student entry last month was killed in West Bank violence. Political shift. Trump's MAGA base splits on Israel support, but the former president remains unmoved. Near disaster. A Spanish fighter jet nearly crashes into beachgoers when birds strike during an airshow. International tension. Israeli tourists face growing hostility in Greece as Athens promises protest crackdowns. Ceasefire success. Thailand and Cambodia end deadly border fighting after 5 days of conflict. Now let's dive into each story and why they matter to you. The shooter who killed 4 people in New York City has been identified by police. Here's what happened. The deadly shooting occurred in late July, sending shockwaves through the community and reigniting national debates over urban gun violence. The key detail you need to know: police are still investigating the motive while urging the public to remain calm. 4 families are grieving tonight, and this tragedy adds to the mounting concerns about gun violence in America's largest city. This matters because it's another stark reminder of the gun violence epidemic plaguing U.S. cities. The identification marks a crucial step in the investigation, but the broader question remains: how do we prevent these tragedies? Meanwhile, international tensions are escalating on multiple fronts. The United Kingdom just issued a diplomatic ultimatum that could reshape Middle East politics. Here's the breaking development. Britain will recognize a Palestinian state if Israel refuses to agree to an immediate Gaza ceasefire. This is unprecedented. The UK is essentially putting recognition on the table as leverage, pressing Israel to halt hostilities to enable humanitarian aid and reduce civilian casualties. The UK's position intensified over the past week amid rising international calls for a ceasefire. No full recognition has occurred yet, but this threat could shift diplomatic recognition dynamics globally. You'll want to remember this moment. It could fundamentally alter Israel-Palestine peace talks and broader regional alliances. When major powers like Britain start threatening recognition, it signals a potential diplomatic earthquake. Speaking of Gaza, the humanitarian crisis there has reached a catastrophic new level. Global hunger monitoring organizations have confirmed what many feared. Gaza is now facing famine conditions. Here are the devastating numbers you need to know. Over 70% of Gaza faces food insecurity. Tens of thousands are at immediate risk of starvation due to the ongoing blockade, conflict, and destroyed infrastructure. Food, water, and medical supplies can't reach those who need them most. Aid access remains severely restricted, creating what humanitarian agencies call a catastrophic humanitarian crisis. This isn't just about numbers. Entire families are making impossible choices about who gets to eat. Children are bearing the brunt of this crisis. This famine risks triggering massive refugee flows and regional instability. The international community faces mounting pressure for humanitarian intervention, while Gaza faces famine. Another refugee crisis is unfolding in Central Asia. Iran is forcibly deporting tens of thousands of Afghan refugees back to uncertainty and danger. Here's what's happening right now. Several tens of thousands of Afghans have been deported in recent weeks as Iran tightens border controls amid domestic pressures. These aren't voluntary returns. These are forced deportations. These families are returning to Afghanistan without adequate support, facing insecurity and lacking basic resources. They left Afghanistan seeking safety and are now being sent back to the very conditions they fled. Deportations have spiked dramatically over the past few months and continue today. Afghanistan, already struggling under Taliban rule, now faces an influx of returnees with nowhere to go. This crisis could further destabilize Afghanistan and create a ripple effect throughout the region. When refugees are forcibly returned to unstable conditions, it often leads to even larger humanitarian disasters. From Central Asia to the Caribbean, law enforcement is battling international crime. Dominican Republic authorities just completed one of the region's largest drug busts after an epic 12-hour boat chase. Here's how it unfolded. Picture this: a 12-plus-hour maritime pursuit through Caribbean waters, ending with the seizure of 1.5 tons of cocaine. That's approximately 3,000 pounds of drugs that won't reach the streets. This represents a significant blow to transnational drug trafficking networks operating in the Caribbean. The sheer duration of the chase shows the lengths smugglers will go to protect their cargo. This bust highlights the ongoing battle against drug trafficking that disrupts security throughout the Caribbean and Central America. These networks fuel violence and corruption across multiple countries. Major seizures like this disrupt supply chains temporarily, but they also reveal the massive scale of the drug trade flowing through this region toward North American markets. From the Caribbean to California, another tragic story connects U.S. immigration policy to Middle East violence. A Palestinian schoolteacher who was denied entry to the United States last month has been killed in West Bank violence. This story connects American immigration policy to tragic outcomes overseas. 1 month ago, this teacher was turned away at San Francisco International Airport. Last week, they were killed in West Bank violence. The circumstances of the death are under investigation. This tragedy highlights the travel restrictions faced by Palestinians and the ongoing cycle of violence in the region. When people can't escape dangerous situations, they often become victims of that very violence. This case will likely fuel debates about U.S. immigration and travel policies, particularly regarding Palestinians seeking to visit or study in America. Remember, this was an educator, someone dedicated to teaching and learning, whose life was cut short by violence after being denied the chance to travel safely. Meanwhile, political divisions in America are playing out over Middle East policy. Here's a development that could reshape American foreign policy. Parts of Trump's MAGA movement are turning against Israel over Gaza, but Trump himself isn't budging. MAGA-aligned politicians and influencers are openly questioning Israel's military actions and urging reconsideration of unwavering support. This represents a significant crack in what was previously solid backing. Despite this dissent from his own base, Trump has reiterated his steadfast support for Israel. This creates an unusual situation where the leader and followers are diverging on a key foreign policy issue. This division has expanded notably in the past month as the Gaza conflict intensified. It shows how international events can fracture even the most cohesive political movements. This internal U.S. political shift directly influences American foreign policy toward Israel and the Middle East. When Trump's own supporters question his position, it signals a potential realignment in Republican foreign policy. From political tensions to literal near disaster, Spain witnessed a frightening aviation incident. A Spanish fighter jet nearly crashed into beachgoers when a massive flock of birds struck the aircraft during an air show. Here's how disaster was narrowly avoided. Picture hundreds of spectators on a Spanish beach watching an air show when suddenly birds collide with a military jet flying overhead. The pilot fought to maintain control while people watched in horror below. The pilot managed to recover control of the aircraft. No casualties or injuries were reported, but this could have been catastrophic with crowds of families watching below. Bird strikes are one of aviation's most dangerous and unpredictable hazards. When they happen during public demonstrations over populated areas, the risks multiply exponentially. This incident will likely prompt reviews of airshow safety protocols globally. When military demonstrations happen over beaches and populated areas, bird migration patterns and wildlife activity must be factored into planning. From near disaster to ongoing tension, Israeli tourists are facing hostility in an unexpected location. Israeli tourists are experiencing growing hostility in Greece, with protests targeting them, as Athens promises to crack down on demonstrations. Here's what travelers need to know. Greek police are escalating measures to control protests specifically targeting Israeli visitors. The hostility has increased during July amid heightened regional conflicts in the Middle East. Athens officials emphasize they're committed to maintaining public order and keeping Greece welcoming to all tourists. They're walking a delicate line between allowing free speech and protecting visitors. This tension could seriously affect tourism revenue, as Greece depends heavily on international visitors. When tourists feel unsafe, word spreads quickly and destinations suffer economically. This demonstrates how Middle East tensions spill over into unexpected places. Popular tourist destinations worldwide could face similar challenges as regional conflicts intensify. Finally, some good news from Southeast Asia. Thailand and Cambodia have successfully ended deadly border fighting with a ceasefire that's holding strong. After 5 days of deadly conflict, both nations agreed to a ceasefire on July 28th. Around 3,000 evacuees who fled the fighting are now safely in shelters, and calm has returned to the border region. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim helped broker this peace through dialogue. The U.S. State Department applauded the ceasefire, calling it a victory for regional stability. This stabilizes Southeast Asian security and prevents escalation between two ASEAN neighbors. It shows that diplomatic solutions can work even when violence has erupted. When neighboring countries resolve conflicts peacefully, it strengthens the entire region's economic and political stability. Here's what connects today's stories and why they matter to your world. From Gaza's famine to Afghan deportations, we're witnessing multiple humanitarian emergencies that demand international attention. These aren't isolated incidents. They're connected patterns of displaced populations and human suffering. Whether it's the UK threatening Palestinian recognition or MAGA supporters questioning Israel support, traditional political alliances are shifting. This realignment will reshape international relations for years. Middle East conflicts are creating tensions in Greece's tourism industry, while drug trafficking disrupts Caribbean security. Today's problems don't respect borders, yet the Thailand-Cambodia ceasefire proves that diplomatic solutions work. When leaders choose dialogue over violence, peace is possible. In the coming days, watch for UK diplomatic moves on Palestinian recognition, humanitarian aid access to Gaza, and whether political divisions in America continue growing over foreign policy. These stories shape our interconnected world. Stay informed, stay engaged, and remember that today's headlines become tomorrow's history. This has been the Daily Signal. I'm Remo. Thanks for staying with us for these critical 15 minutes. Share this briefing with someone who needs to stay informed, and we'll see you tomorrow with the latest developments.
Unfiltered,